midnight session, I said that I was actually going to build this, and I wasn't kidding. So I have this on the edge of my workstation. I've set it up so you guys can see. I have two pieces here that are going to be my landing gear struts. Now I know my prop is going to be adding some length, so these are going to be my struts. Okay, then I'm going to install these. Now they have a very particular straight shape. It's very simple, and all we're going to do is we're going to take them and measure them and make sure that they're about equal. Now I cut them freehand, so they may not be perfect, so I'm going to go up the one edge after I've aligned them and snip the bigger one, because there's inevitably a bigger one. And now we've got that. I've got the glue gun glue warming up, but that's not all. Now check this shape out I came up with. This would be a really nice shape for struts, but it wouldn't be very strong, okay? But what if we doubled it over and braced it using these, and then we make them, and look at the shape of them. They've got that nice curvature and they've got that nice bend, so I can give them the shape I want, because I'm going to want to fine tune the shape of this later, and I'm going to want them about like that. So we're going to put those down here. Now I've got some other things here that I want to get into. I'm going to put all those aside for now. You notice my old pieces, I do not throw them away, guys. I keep old pieces, because some of these make awesome tails. This one got cut out by accident, and actually was scrap left over after I designed something else. I snipped it off here, and it's perfect. It's going to be a tail on my next small little plane. So I'll show you that later. Well, maybe not the next one, but I've got a bunch designed. A whole bunch more to come after that. All my old ones I keep, because you never know when they might either inspire me or be just the ticket and work with the wing I'm doing just right and look just right and play just right. So we're going to get these going, and you're going to notice that these are just the right length if we set them in here to be real reinforcements here and to make this whole thing pretty tough and pretty wide. And then once it's in place and we brace it, it'll actually be very strong. So that is going to be our goal for this mission, because what we're after here is just to make the landing gear. Not quite. We also have some straps to add to my tail, because, as I'll show you in a second, this tail is very flimsy this way, and it is because it's got a narrow mount here. So we want to reinforce that and strengthen that, and we're going to do this in the exact same way. So I'm just going to show you from scratch here. I'll take a piece that is a scrap piece that I'm cutting sections off, and I like this section here. This is actually a really good section for making standoffs for a wing, and since I'm going to be bracing this wing later, and you can see this standoff is about the right size, and I want to put one in the middle, I'm going to leave this and I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to go to the thickness I want for my brace, and I actually want a pretty thick brace, believe it or not. And to keep these the same thickness, I'm just going to cut one piece, and it'll make it a lot easier, believe it or not, to keep them one thickness. Now I'm going to fold this right square in half, and there you go, and I'm going to snip it off the other end. You might ask why I did that. It's because those little pieces that I clip off for that make these amazing little VGs when you fold them out. This is going to be a great VG, and you'll see that I'll use them later. These little pieces end up being awesome. I make them all the time, and then they end up being incredibly useful. So now we're going to take these two pieces, and we're going to do the same thing we always do. We're going to make them symmetrical. So I'm going to make sure that I have this one flat. You can see it helps a lot to have a flat object. And then I'm going to arrange them this way, and then I'm going to trim the top, and I'm going to look along the sides to see if there's anything there that needs training. When I say training, I mean cutting. It needs to be trained to be the shape we want it. We could look at it that way. So you don't want to just start randomly cutting. You want to just look, get them symmetrical as much as you can, even if there's little imperfections. Now we're going to take these, and we're going to put this here. and I'm going to mock up what I want these to be. Now you may not think I want ones this high, and maybe I do, maybe I don't, is what I say to you. But in the end, I don't. In fact, I'm going to brace this a couple of places, and so I'm going to try and get this about halfway, and then I'm going to snip it again. And now we're going to do the exact same thing. Like I said, one of them always ends up being the bigger one, guys. So all you usually have to do is identify that one, trim it to the size of the other one, and you're good to go. Okay, so, oh, excuse me, how lovely. Now, what I want to do is I want to mock these up so that when I place them, I have a good idea of where I want them. Now, really, I want my bracing to be right about like this, guys. So I'm going to check my glue gun glue. I'm going to apply a little pressure. If I get a little spurt like that, I'm just going to pull it off. And I'm going to go like this. And then I'm going to place the bottom down in exactly the same orientation as the other one. Then I'm going to place a tiny little bead of glue on top of it. Just one dab. That's it right there, guys. And then I'm going to place it down. Now I'm going to place another little dab of glue. And then I'm going to work it back and forth like this to work the glue in. Now I'm going to put it to the angle that I want for my bracing. Make sure my tail is perfectly level, guys, because this is where we're locking it in. This is where that leading edge gets utterly and completely locked in. And that is really an important thing. So I'm going to double check it and triple check it and make sure that it's right. And now I'm going to hold it like this so I see that it's level and perfect. And I'm just going to hold on to it. Now this brace could have been more slanted out. So I'm going to hold this in place and just kind of push it down a little. But it appears it's too late. But that's okay. So the next step is to make the other one exactly match it. Now I have seen that if you do not exactly match these little types of features can lead to slight imbalances, guys, in the way that the aircraft performs and handles. Only I don't want any imbalances. I want it perfect. Now I'm going to look from above and make sure that they're centered here. I'm going to give a little squish to get rid of any excess. And then I'm very quickly going to put it into place, lock it in. And now I'm not going to mess with it because it looks perfect. And I'm going to check, double check, and triple check my wing while this is happening to make sure it's locked in, guys. And that is looking pretty symmetrical. And you want it to be symmetrical because when it's flying through the air, air will be flying through these channels and creating downforce. And, oh, that's no good. But it is. That's okay. It looks good. It looks about right, actually. It looks darn near close to perfect. Almost as perfect as I'd say I can probably get. So, I'm satisfied with that. And now, as you can see, it's rock solid. Now I can pick the whole thing up by it, and it can easily do its job and attach here. In addition, I'm going to want to attach my control surface up here. It'll actually be on the top wing to control the tail. Or it could be on the bottom wing, and I can run my control arm through this and attach to the bottom, and it'll make a guide for my control horn and for the wire that runs to it. So that's one step. Now that's finished. That was one thing I needed to do. I knew I needed to brace that. And now that I have flown it and know that it's locked in like crazy and flies amazing, I know that I can lock in this leading edge as you saw it. And I actually just want to make it just like that, guys. I want to put a little end in here. I don't want this hanging out. You might think I meant that. I do not. What I want is I want to put this right to the tail of the VG and then make it fit. So we're going to snip this off, but I like the angle it appeared at. That's a pretty angle for this. And because I actually wanted two pieces like this, now I'm going to take them, put them side to side, and make them symmetrical, guys. And that is sometimes harder than it looks. But we got this. So now we just take them, trim them, make them so they're as close to symmetrical as we can possibly get, you guys. Because if they're not going to work very well. And they're going to be clumsy when they could be perfect. So the difference between clumsy and perfect is one is haphazard and the other is precision. Okay? And precision is what you want with these little guys. Alright, so now that that's done, we're going to take these and I'm going to put them slotted in right here, one on either side. You might think I'm going to do it like that, but I'm actually going to do it like this, guys. Okay? Just like this. One on either side. And then I'm going to pull the wing down until it touches it. And you may say, well, look at that. See that? Now you see these are angled the other way. That's actually a good thing. And you're going to see that this is a lot to do with contrasting angles, you guys. This is the nature of the hobby. So we're going to pull this down just like that. And now before I go sticking it in place, I'm going to take the other one and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to reach in between with my fingers. I'm actually going to put it in between my fingers just like that. I'm going to grab hold of it. I'm going to put the tiniest bit of glue on it. I'm going to brace it with the other finger and then put it in so it's about exactly equal with the other one. And I'm going to try and make them straight front to back and nice and snug and exactly in the same position as my VG is there. There's actually a little gap here, but that'll be okay, believe it or not. So now we're just going to lift this up and put our finger in between like that. And now I'm just going to reach in. And if it's easier to do it from the front, do it from the front. But I actually recommend you take a crack at both. It'll depend on where you have these mounted inside of here. One there, a little bit. And then before I hit the other one, I'm going to put some glue there too. And then I'm going to mount them like this. So they're not straight up and down, but they're slightly angled out. But only slightly. Now I'm just going to let it dry like that. Only I'm going to work to make sure those angles are as close to exactly the same as I can get. Okay, so now we're going to have a much more braced wing. I already know I want structure here and here because these are where my mount points are going to be, guys. So I also see that this one didn't quite take enough glue, and I want to fix that, guys. So, and this is why I recommend a little tiny glue at first, because you're going to be adjusting, you're going to be tweaking, and the more you're adjusting and tweaking, the more you're going to want to make sure that this is right, the more glue you really want to use, essentially. Because the longer you're going to spend tweaking it, the more you need to adjust it, the hotter the glue gun needs to be as well. So if you're going to do something like this, it helps to have the glue gun glue really hot. Because it'll make this a little easier. And now this is the only really hard part, but I'm going to put another little bead of glue right on the back of both of these, just a drop. And I'm going to reach in with my fingers and smooth it. Reach in with my finger and smooth it while it's still warm. Okay, so now we have our bracing here. We have our bracing here to hold us on the angle that we want. And if you look at it from this direction, it's pretty cool bracing. Just like the wings on our big biplane. One is angled this way, one is angled that way. One is forward swept, one is backward swept. And they make an X for RXD. That's Robinson Extreme Design. Here we have, kinky. Kind of looks like an R, doesn't it? Ah, maybe. What do I know? Anyway, so enough play. Now we're going to get to the real bit. And we're going to make our landing gear. So I have my pieces, and I'm just going to go to work, and I'm going to take the two pieces that I designed, if I can find them now. This is one of the reasons I recommend you be careful. You don't want to be losing vital pieces to your build. But really, in the end, I'm not. I actually have the two I want to use as braces here, and I have other things laying around. I have all kinds of things that I can use. But before I do this, I want to think long and hard about whether I want to do it. No. I actually recommend you do the exact opposite, guys. You just build it, because sometimes when you are building, the best ideas come to your brain, and you just start working on an idea, and the next thing you know, you build it, and it works, and it's awesome. So sometimes you build it, and it doesn't work right away. That's part of the challenge and part of the joy of it. Is that I get to build these things, and I love what I do. So now I have these about equal. So now I'm going to fold these over, and I'm going to take a look at this. And I'm going to want to put this, see how I've got this right in the middle? I'm just going to fold this one more time, make sure that it's pretty close to symmetrical, and then snip it off at the end. So I have a nice flat edge here. Now, I'm going to take this, and I'm going to put this right on the leading edge, because that is where I want my gear to be. And then I'm going to just plop it down in the middle. I'm going to put it roughly to the angle that I would like my gear to sit at, and then try and make it so that this is perfectly in the middle of my bend. And if I've done my work right, this will be perfect, guys. Now, I'm going to take one of these guys like this, and I'm going to put it upright like this, and this is going to help to lock everything in. And I'm going to go right about halfway mark down the landing gear. You got to watch that. Sticky stuff is, well, sticky, naturally enough. Now, when I look at it from the side, I need to make sure that this does not have an angle down, but has a very slight, and I mean very slight, angle upward, so that the back of this is slightly down and the front of this is slightly up. And that way, when you look at it, it should be a wing. It should encourage you to fly. So let's just make that, see if I've got this anywhere near correct. I actually don't, but I also noticed this one didn't take because I didn't put enough glue on it. And neither did the other one, not sufficiently anyway, for my taste. But now, it gives me the opportunity to rework it. So now, I want to make the distance between these 2 points the same. And that's actually really important. And I also want to have my gear spread open about equally. So we're looking at about right there. So now I'm going to add one more drop right here, just to seal that in. One more drop right here, just to seal that in. And then I'm going to pull across. You see that? That's why you don't touch it, guys. I tell you to touch it, it's because you have to. Because you have to smear that extra glue away. You don't want that. But we're going to brace it later and make it even stronger. And for now, all we want to do is get it to actually be tacky. And then as soon as it's tacky and you feel that and you've had the chance to kind of line it up, do it. You've lined it up. It's tacky. Set it in place. So now we're just going to check it this way. We're going to check it this way. Make my little upward angle, which I have. Make sure that it's right. And I'm actually seeing that it's not quite. So this is one of the reasons why I like to do it this way, because now with it just that little bit tacky, you can just kind of go like that and keep doing it until you get it right. And whatever mistakes you make really won't matter, because you won't be using that much glue to add a whole ton of weight to it and totally ruin it. So there's a couple more braces we need to make to this. Now that this one is looking like it's pretty much done, and I'm pretty happy with the fact that it's an A and it looks pretty good, we're actually going to take the next step and we're going to make 2 more of these little tiny slats. Okay, and we are again going to cut this bad boy in half. We're actually just going to trim this first so I get a basically even set of pieces. That one's getting too small to work with. You just cast it off, guys. Snip this one where you think it might be useful. This is how you reuse your scrap. And I want a decent size here. And now I am going to look at this just to see where I want my bracing to be. And I actually want it to be like this. So I am going to cut this one, snip the end. Now, same as before, I'm going to estimate where I want half to be, where I believe half is, using my many years of wisdom and experience, and see if I have it wrong again. Ah, look, I do. Not by much. I'm never off by much, but I'm always off that tiny little bit, guys. And when you know you're variation, how much you're likely to be off, you can really fix things. So, and plan ahead for it. So, I am going to plan to put a little bit of glue here and a little bit of glue here because I know where I want this brace to be. And now I'm just going to slide it in place. And now, with this slid into place, we see my shape starting to take place. And because I'm really happy with that, I'm actually just going to leave that one alone because it looks just about perfect. It really does. And I just need to make sure my angles are right and everything's set correctly. And it's good to go. Like that. Now we're going to take the other one and we're just going to try and match its location on here. That's it. Just try. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to try. Same as always, guys. And so now we're going to match this one to that one. And we're going to look at this like this. And we're going to give it a push-pull and a little fine-tuning. And then this is going to be our solution right here. And it's going to hold everything in place for me and make this a nice setup. Okay, and now I'm just going to sit it here, and sure enough it sits, and not only does it sit, it sits level. Why? Because I made it symmetrical, guys. Symmetry is the key. I hate to say it, but it's always the key. If you're having problems, the answer is usually symmetry. And now I'm just going to go in here and lay a little reinforcing bead along the front of each strut, right in here, and then on the back side, the exact same places. And I'm going to lay also a bead into here now at the front of this to stiffen that joint that I made, because I don't actually want it to be soft. So now I'm just going to take my fingers real careful. I'm going to make sure I'm not ruining this, but I'm also going to make sure that I get all this excess off, because you never want more than you need. You really don't. And it's okay if you've got a whole bunch of strings like this. You can always clean those up after. They clean up fast and easy. It's kind of like 3D printing. Alright, so now it's looking like this is much more solid. We have some landing gear strength here. So, we got this, and we're going to get this. You'll see. It's going to be sick when we're done. So, now, we need something else. Now, at this point, we need to decide what kind of landing gear do we want. Do we want skis? Do we want skids? Do we want this? Do we don't want that? All that stuff has to be figured out in advance, you might think. But really, I haven't given any thought to what my landing gear was going to look like until right now. You might think that, but not quite. I had some vague ideas, which is why I'm doing it a little different. But if you look at the bracing on this one, you'll see it's the same scheme. It's very similar. It's just on a smaller scale. Now, I could do one more across here, but I actually don't want to do that on this one. I don't think it's going to need it. These are actually strong enough. I made the other ones pretty thin for its size. So what we're going to do is now we're going to show you guys one potential way to make a ski. Now you see this? This is actually a beautiful looking ski in the making. And if you don't see a ski in there, well, you're not me, because I see a ski. So I'm going to show you how to make it. And you see we've got this section on the front here, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim that down because I actually want this to be my rear skid. And because of that, and the fact that I haven't actually made one yet, I'm just going to go back here to the tail, and I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to make it like this. So it'll sit like this, so it'll cover the whole tail. Not quite. I actually want it to sit about here, and I don't need it to be this long. So I want to take a bead on how long I want my rear ski to be, and I've done that. There you go. There's my rear ski. Now I just try and make the angle straight. I'm going to make it a little cut on each side. Little cut corner design. They're real easy to do, and they end up looking pretty good if you can get them right. But they're very difficult to get right, guys. And I actually don't recommend you do this. You'll see me do a lot of straight cuts. It's because to do this is very tough. I still didn't get it exactly right. And by the time you do, you've usually whittled away all your material. So, see that? I still didn't get it exactly perfectly right, but it's so close, it's not even funny. And it's still in the size range, which is why I tell you to make it a little bit bigger. I wasn't kidding. Making it bigger is actually a really important key. So, Now I'm going to go down here for some extra material, and I'm going to take a look at this material and see if I can find some skis. And you can see this side is arched. Well, these are perfect skis. So already I have my skis. Now the problem is I'm already planning on making another biplane. So, and another monoplane and this and that. But these pieces won't be used for that. They're too small. So I'm going to go from here. In addition, if I build them this way, I have the really big corner here. But these are little tiny skis, so I don't need that. All I'm going to need is that little lip. Now, there's other lips here that you can use. So there's so many little pieces that you could use to build this. But you'll notice here I have this real good lip, and on the other one, I just don't. I want to have that good lip here. This is my VGs. This is my piece. The problem is, it's also the piece for other things. But if you leave yourself enough of a lip, you'll be able to do this without sacrificing the pieces you'll need later for other things. So now, I'm just going to go to about the distance I want my two front skis to be. And I'm going to cut them out straight, easy like that. Giving myself enough room there for another piece later. Now, you could do them like this, but I find they don't always come out that way for length. So we do them both ways. We do them once to get the width and once for the length. So right now, I'm just adjusting. And then I'm going to snip this guy just like that. And away like that, we're close enough. So now, we're going to put these together and we're going to put them here. But then, we're going to brace this on either side. So we're going to put our glue gun glue right here. Get rid of any little hairs like this little guy that are sticking around, no pun intended. Now, same thing. We take our little ski and we put it on the plane where I want to see it be, at the angles I want to see it be. And then I look very carefully, very quickly, to see if I have about the same distance between my skis. They don't have to be exactly the same, but I want them a little bit splayed out and a little bit leaned in and a little bit leaned back, you guys, so that when you touch the ground on this angle, they have a little spring to them. If you can see the angles there, these are important angles for landing here, guys. And look at that. They're actually just about perfect, you guys. This is looking sweet because you want them angled back. One of the reasons they're so fat and on such nice angles is so that when you're flying 3D, these will actually be very, very important for you. And they will help to keep the aircraft in the air by producing lift for you, which is actually really, really important, guys. So now you can see that I've gotten them pretty close. They're not perfect, but that is okay because we still have to put in the little side mounts, and we're actually going to put them on the inside here and just put another little strut to help that have some strength, because this piece will do just fine for that. We're going to snip ourselves a couple very small pieces, and again, we want them symmetrical, because this goes a long way towards weight balance, guys, not just towards flying. But if you make the effort to make these symmetrical, when you build them, you will find that you have a much easier time later. So now, I'm going to take some glue gun glue, and I'm going to drop it right up inside of here on both sides. One single drop. And I'm going to take this little fella, and I'm just going to press it up against and inside the ski, but on its side, just like that, guys. Okay? So that it acts like an I-beam and strengthens it. Just like that. Okay? So that they come on these little angles. Like that. And those look pretty good. And that will be nice and strong. And when I'm done, give me enough room for my propeller, because this is going to be a really small propeller. This should be enough. If not, I can always lengthen these later and move my skis farther down. But this is just to make extra strength, and now they're rock solid, guys. They're not going anywhere. They're all doubled over and tripled over here, tripled over in here. This is really strong, even though it might not look it. So the next step is we need to make ourselves a tailwheel strut. So we're going to take this guy, we're going to bend it, and we're going to make the same type of arrangement here. I know that I want my tail skid at the very front of this biplane, and we're going to leave this as the skid that's actually going to be doing the work. Actually, you know what? No. I'm going to do it exactly the other way, and I'm going to make a sick hinge out of this. Okay, like this. Okay, so I've got a piece in here that stops this from moving very far. And that actually is a very serviceable, useful, and fully functional tail skid on its own, and it is the super light version of the other one. It's a very similar design, guys. Very, very similar design. But it'll make this much, much stronger. Now, once you lock in the angles, you can put another piece back here and another piece up here to really strengthen it and box it right in and make it almost bulletproof. Not literally, of course, but you will make it very strong. So let's just do this now. I want to see how I've affected my CG, and I can see I haven't. It's still CGing perfect, and it's CGing at exactly the right spot on the wing, right in line with this VG on the bottom wing, which is the perfect spot. Now, we've braced our tail, we've braced all this, but this is still pretty flimsy. So we're going to do one more thing. We're going to take one of these guys and we're going to bend it like this. I'm going to leave this little flap, and you're going to see why in a second. So I'm going to put this like this. I'm going to trim it so that it fits. And what I'm seeing is that this is a little too long for my idea to take shape. So I'm going to make a little Z that fits in here like this. Okay? And I'll show you what happens when I get it to the right length. So now I'm going to put this in here and I'm going to test it, and I can already see that this is the right size. So now I'm going to install it. And I'll show you exactly what my engineer's brain has in mind. See this? Wait till it's done, you'll see. Let me just focus on getting it right so that you guys can see this. And this is going to be another patented design by Keith Daniel Robinson. No, I'm not patenting this. I'm just building it, guys, so that you can build it later. Check that out. See, isn't that sweet? And once the glue locks it in place, it'll pretty much be inclined to stay there. And you'll have a nice, reliable landing gear that doesn't take up crazy amounts of weight, but is pretty strong and pretty reliable